Hey everyone, I'm Bryan, and I'm going to talk about how to build a zero-maintenance web application. Imagine launching a web project that you never have to come back and maintain. You just launch it, and then you move on to other things while it silently lives on and never demands your attention again. Sounds pretty nice, but is it even possible? Well, technically probably not. Nothing lasts forever. But what if we tried? How close could we get? And what trade-offs would we have to make? Well, the first thing we have to think about is how can we use technologies that prioritize backwards compatibility? And I started thinking about this when I saw a tweet from Ryan Florence. He was saying that all my PHP apps I haven't touched in 10 years still run. My wife even uses one for her photography clients. Worst code ever, but my longest production code ever. All my Rails apps I haven't touched do this. And it shows an application error. And when you think about it, Rails has historically prioritized things like developer happiness, developer productivity, and building server-rendered web applications. But when you think about the PHP stack that people often use, things like Apache, MySQL, and then of course PHP running on shared hosted servers or servers that are managed by other people, you look at that and it's pretty resilient, right? Those are things that have been dedicated to backwards compatibility for a while. So really, you just have to think about it, right? What are things that are dedicated to backwards compatibility? Another example is the Space Jam website. This site has been around untouched for nearly 25 years. It uses outdated techniques like HTML tables for layout, but it still works fine. And that's because the web platform, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, they're committed to backwards compatibility. And you can actually see what kinds of technologies are committed to backwards compatibility. If you go to the web pages for programming languages or platforms, things like these ones right here, Java, Debian Linux, or Node.js, they oftentimes have a page for long-term support, and they have charts and diagrams showing how long they intend to support certain versions of this technologies. And you can see how long are they supporting these things, like how dedicated are they to backwards compatibility, and when will support end, right? So you can compare technologies and look at them and see how dedicated they are to these things. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that you want to be avoiding the cutting edge, and that goes for both design and development. And to talk about this, I want to share an example of a zero-maintenance house. I saw this posted online. There was an architecture firm that wanted to make a zero-maintenance house, so this is what they came up with. They built it. It uses glass panels everywhere. It looks pretty nice. But when they posted it on the internet, the comment section started filling up with other architects who said, nah, there's no way this thing is zero maintenance. The sun's going to come in these windows and bake all the wood that's inside, and it's just going to be a terrible disaster. You can't even get it underneath this platform that it's raised on to do inspections or checks. There's no way this thing is going to last very long. And that's the problem. They're using some cutting edge techniques, and maybe it could last forever, maybe not. There's no way to know because there's nothing like this that has been done in the past, right? If you really want to look at a house that you know is going to last a long time, take a look at this one, right? This one has stood the test of time. It's been around forever. You know if you started to build a new house and it looks something like this, that it's going to work, right? Here's another one. Right? These are the equivalents for your application if you want to build a zero maintenance application. You want to be using mature technologies like stone and concrete, right? You want to be using technologies that have been around for a while, technologies that have already proven that they can go the distance. And that goes for your application as well. And the same goes for design, right? Here's a website that's been the same design since 2002. This is the Daring Fireball blog. And it shows us that, it's not totally flashy, not amazing looking, but it also it's okay, right? It shows us that some things never go out of style. That's things like minimalist design and good typography. But here's another website that looked amazing when it came out, and it looks pretty dated right now. So why is that? It's because it was cutting edge, right? You have to avoid the cutting edge if you want something to look good and to work good for years and years and years to come. Another thing to consider is we want to eliminate dependencies, and that could mean third-party packages, and it could also mean third-party services. And the word dependency says it all, right? You are depending on something else or someone else. And you're out of date as soon as your first dependency is out of date, right? So the more dependencies you have, the sooner that day will come. So when it comes to dependencies, the solution is you have to write it yourself. Instead of using third-party packages, use the features that are built into your own programming language wherever possible. And use that standard library, and if it doesn't exist, then you're going to have to write it yourself. When it comes to third-party services, you have to ask yourself, can I pull down the data from the service and store it locally so then it's really all within my control? Or you have to ask yourself, is this third-party service something that I can consolidate? Instead of reaching out to 3 or 4 different services to get everything I need, can I just reach out to one and make that one that I know that I can depend on, right? The more dependencies you eliminate, the more risk you eliminate in having something fail and then you being on the hook to maintain that failure. Another thing to think about is to automate things. Now, when you're building a web application, sometimes you have these time-sensitive things, right? You might have old logs that are piling up on your server or old data that's being generated. And if you don't clean that out and delete it periodically, then your server is going to fill up and then it's going to go down, right? So you can automate, managing those deletions using cron jobs or other techniques. You also have some things that expire, right? You might have SSL certificates that expire every year or a couple of years. So you can automate renewing those things. Or if you have to pay for services like your hosting or your domain name, you can set those things up on auto pay or to pay for many years in advance so you don't have your domain name expire, your service go down, and you don't even know what happened, right? So I think just getting in the mindset of, can I automate this, can go a long way towards creating something that's zero maintenance. And one more thing I want to talk about is to simplify. Really, this is about asking yourself, are there features that I don't need? Are there features that add complexity that I can cut and remove to simplify my application overall? And I was inspired by another zero maintenance house that I was looking at. And this house is pretty interesting because it has cut a lot of features that you would normally have on a house. There's no lawn, so you don't have to worry about irrigation or mowing or trimming or weeding or any of that. There's no wooden deck, so you don't have to worry about staining or weatherproofing or termites. There's no basement, so you don't have to worry about waterproofing. They've just trimmed away these features that are typically high maintenance, so then you don't have to worry about it. And for technology, you can do that with your feature set, you can do that with your tech stack, you can do that with your tool chain. You can be asking yourself questions like, does my application need to use formatted text or is plain text sufficient? Do I need a database or can I store the data in local storage or in the URL? Do I actually need a backend generating templates or can a static website work? Or in your tool chain, do I need a preprocessor to process my styles or to process my JavaScript, or is it just okay to use the existing supported CSS and JavaScript? Now, it's easy to take all of these principles to the extreme, and if you really want to look at the ultimate zero maintenance house, you're going to have to look at this. Now, this is truly zero maintenance. These have been around for many, many years. They don't go out of style, but they're also totally impractical. Nobody wants to live in a cave. It's not a good living experience. And honestly, this picture really summarizes the problem with zero maintenance apps. A zero maintenance application is not a good idea if users don't want to use it and developers don't want to build on it. So going full zero maintenance for a project is usually a bad idea. Now, there might be certain projects where it makes sense. Maybe you've got a project that is not going to make money, so you just want to set it out there and let it live. Maybe that's fine. Ultimately, though, zero maintenance principles can help with any project. So no matter what you're working on, you can always be thinking about, how can I eliminate dependencies? How can I automate things? How can I simplify the feature set? how can I choose technologies that prioritize backwards compatibility? And as you think through these things, you can make each decision on a case-by-case basis and really optimize towards what your application is trying to do. Anyways, that's all I have to say. If you want to learn more about this, I have some resources that you can take a look at. These links were helpful for me as I was thinking through this idea, and I hope you have a good day.